Okay. Not bad, Marvel. Not bad. Maybe you still got it.
Can't run from your past. Is this what you wanted?
And so today we have, fingers crossed I got this, Shang-Chi. Or Shang-Chi, I suppose. Everybody's saying Shane, but it's Shang-Chi, I believe is how it is. So, Shang-Chi came out this year, 2021. Marvel's newest entry. We're introducing more characters as Marvel enters its next phase. I realized that my reviews were very much absent during the main period of like Marvel's uprising, all the way from Iron Man to Endgame. I've only really recently been in the review game for Marvel films since Black Widow. It really, part of me sees them as like everybody always talks about them, so what more can I contribute to the dialogue? But at the same time, I still made a pact with myself at the beginning of, 2020, that I would make a review for every single film I saw in theaters, and here we are. And this is good reason I'm here. I actually want to make a review for this, because Shang-Chi provides me with hope that Marvel still got it. Not to say that I was becoming disenfranchised with Marvel per se, pun intended, but Disney is Disney and the film industry is the film industry. Seeing Black Widow is a bit discouraging. Black Widow's not a bad movie, but it's also not a great movie, you know? I mean, it was good. It was just a film that exists in the Marvel franchise, and that's just kind of But Shang-Chi, this, honestly, I have pretty much nothing negative to say about this. Shang-Chi was excellent, fantastic. Honestly, just about like a perfect film for me. Director Destin Daniel Cretton, or Cretton, I believe is his name. He does have a filmography that already exists, but not really so much in the vein of action. I'd say arguably his most noticeable film that you might have heard of before Shang-Chi was Just Mercy. Came out recently, or within the last few years. Michael B. Jordan. It's a whole courtroom drama type of deal. But the man has experience, of course. He's another one of those big names. It's like, I guess if Marvel's going to pull anybody, it's going to be someone who has experience directing, producing, writing, the whole 9 yards. So we got somebody who's been in the film industry to an extent, and now this is like his first big blockbuster, and he knocks it out of the park. Great job, no complaints at all. Of course, gotta give a huge shout out to the star of the show here. You know him, maybe. Well, not many people really know him, but he was great. I thought he killed it. Simu Liu, great job. I loved him, and I don't know how much of this is true. Apparently, from what the rumor mill was saying, is that he's Chinese, and apparently a lot of people kind of from that area were thinking he wasn't the most attractive choice for this, physical appearance wise. I think he's a damn handsome guy, and I think he's charming, funny, and he works as this character in the film. He's charming and funny, yet also vulnerable, and it still feels like he doesn't feel like a kid, but he also doesn't feel wise beyond his years. He feels like someone who is legit on a journey of self-discovery and trying to figure out his place in the world, which is exactly what this movie's meant to be, is to take place in current time for the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but to still introduce a new character and then show that he does have his own skill set and soon-to-be acquired powers, basically. You know what? Awkwafina, you can be charming too. I gotta say, she did a good job. As the franchise, my best friend put it, she does a very good job of playing herself, and she just really kind of leans into that role. She's probably what you would refer to as the grounding force in a film like this, like that grounding presence. So oftentimes you'll watch a movie where things start getting pretty ridiculous and crazy, whether it's sci-fi, horror, or even something like this that has a little bit of everything going for it. But the MCU is getting pretty crazy now, since we're introducing the whole universe into play now. So to have somebody who is a grounding presence, who's what's going on here? I don't get this. I'm just a normal regular pal or guy or whatever, girl. It also lends a perspective to the audience to kind of I think I mentioned it in Candyman too. It brings you there because there's got to be one guy, the audience, who's I don't know what the hell's going on here. So Awkwafina, good job. Worth a shout out for sure. Apparently, Tony Lung, God, he killed it too. The cast just killed it in this. He is very well known, but not in the Hollywood scene. This is his like premiere on the Hollywood scene. Evidently, he already has a really good, well-established filmography outside of the American film system. What a great presence. It was another like Thanos in a way, a very well-written, well-acted, well-portrayed, a really compelling, villain more or less. And this isn't a spoiler because literally every article out there has already talked about it. He's actually he is the Mandarin. Not the Ben Kingsley fake Mandarin that Iron Man 3 brought into play. This acknowledges the events of Iron Man 3 and not really, kind of retcons it, but also just kind of writes and furthers the narrative that no, this was the real Mandarin. This was the guy that was someone took the name of, and it shows. This man is a powerful menace and has been for over a century. So great job there. And the last bit worth mentioning as well, Fala Shen as Simu Liu's sister in the movie. Also great, really good. That's the core four for me. Of course, there's other characters that also have importance for themselves and their roles. I'm not going to get into it. Normally, I only could do the first couple or so, but honestly, the core four here, the cast did such a good job in this that I had to just give them all a shout out here. Just bravo. I literally don't really have any negative notes here. I was so surprised. I went into this thinking, I'll be honest, I went into it with an open mind, but I went into this thinking, okay, another Marvel film, it's going to be average, should be, a decent time. I actually wasn't excited to see this. I was going to go see it. I was interested, but I wasn't pumped. Reviews start coming out talking good things. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Well, they also said the good things about Black Widow, but let's see what happens. And watching through this film, I'm watching it and I'm like, man, there's nothing bad I can say so far. It works. This film works so well for me. It was just a fun, funny, also heartfelt, solidly put together, well-directed cinematography. Action was there, hearts pounding in places. A tear was shed here or there. Compelling story, characters. Maybe I'm just romanticizing it possibly, because I'm sure if you look enough, some people have picked it apart to an extent where they found some flaws with it. I didn't really find any flaws. I thought it was fantastic. Like I said, all the main components are there. Killer performances in addition to that. So every person who's acting in this film, even inside roles and all that, everybody nails their character. I felt like there was development from everybody. There was character arcs for everybody. There was, even when it came to villains and all that, I still sympathized with villains, which is what I want. What I always want out of a good villain, and in my opinion, you can always tell the mark of a good, well-written villain is when whatever their reasoning is, wherever they're coming from, you sympathize, even empathize with them. It's easy to write a piece of shit. Ramsay Bolton, Game of Thrones, prime example. Joffrey Baratheon, Game of Thrones, the bastard that he is, the fucking inbred son of a bitch. My point being, it's very easy to write a fucking piece of shit that you just want to see die as soon as they come on screen for, every scene they're in. But to have a villain who you want so desperately, you want them to see the light, you sympathize and you get where they're coming from, and you want, to have characters like that you want them to, come around. That says something. That means you got some good writing there. You got some good acting chops. You have a performance that's it's not perfect through and through. There's moments where I'm like, you son of a bitch, but other moments where I'm like, come on, I know he means well. I get where he's coming from. If you can get where a villain is coming from, the writers did their job well, as did the actor. Another thing worth mentioning, because I saw going into it, so the big thing, and I left it out of the title, and I left it out of even the intro itself, because it's, Shang-Chi and the Secret of the Ten Rings, it's just a long heading. It's the full name of the film, but that's the key thing about the whole film are the 10 rings, the 5 and 5 on both arms, basically. Nobody knows where they came from. Our guy, the Mandarin, has them, and basically they're these rings that are an extension of physical force and power through some type of mystical something or other. But I was actually really, really surprised with how creatively they were used in the film. They're used as propulsion for landing, for sticking a landing. Of course, in combat, they're just pure force and focused energy that could be used to I'm not gonna spoil too much of what they're all used for, but I was very surprised to see how creatively they were utilized and how actually how well it translated on screen, because I mean, it's like CGI is a lot of it, like, but it's well done CGI. Like, they were practical wherever they could be, but used CGI for a lot of the rain effects, and it actually worked out pretty well in my opinion. Speaking of practical effects, I was a little bit worried based on the trailer and one of the opening scenes of action that this was going to be kind of a little bit too Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. No concern there. They don't quite lean into that as heavily. It's still like a lot of well choreographed fight scenes, and there's a lot of high flying action, but it's not like the action doesn't fillet itself, for lack of a better term. It doesn't really it's not just like floating around and flying and kicks and jumps and flying through the air for the sake of it. It's all organic to the scenes, and there's still it feels like there's still physics engaged when it comes to a lot of these fights, which are pretty high stakes in a lot of areas of the movie. Surprisingly, the fights are all well done. I love the representation. In terms of this film, no whitewashing or anything of the sort. There was great representation, and all of it on Marvel film. It was kind of like what Black Panther did, but instead it's more of the Chinese angle here, and the culture and the heritage involved and invoked from this. And I felt like all of it made sense. None of it was felt offensive. I didn't feel embarrassed for the filmmakers or anything like that. They did a good job. And the soundtrack, it's so easy to make your classic orchestral score, your Hans Zimmers out there, your Tom Holkenbergs, your John Williams, Danny Elfman, whatever, all the big names. But this soundtrack kind of slapped. I would listen to the songs from the soundtrack separately. There's some bangers in this one. The only potentially negative thing I could possibly think of in the entire film only lasted about 30 seconds, and it's not enough for me to detract from what my review is going to be for it. Toward the end of the third act, or the middle of the third act, I guess, while some characters are preparing for something, there's a couple, 2 lines that are delivered in a kind of weird way. I might have been overthinking it, but it stuck with me enough where I was like, that was a bit of an odd delivery there. Besides that, nothing. Again, maybe if I watched it again and tried to really pick apart the film, I could find something, but no. This film worked for me. The pacing was great, the action was good, not too much action, not overzealous with it. The story I gave a shit about. I was really curious to see how it would go, and I was really engaged. Everybody did a good job. Great representation, like I said. I have nothing but positive things to say. I am very surprised with how much I loved this film, and this is honestly one of, if not my I would put this in my top 5 favorite Marvel movies. I mean, even if you put Endgame down, or the original Iron Man, or even if you put Captain America 2, what I'm saying is any of the Marvel films you could put down, and then you could start picking it apart, plot hole, weak point, this and that. I'm very hard pressed to find any shortcomings with Shang-Chi. It worked really well. It worked so well, and I'm pleasantly surprised. So, with that being said, I'll try to keep this kind of short. I give Shang-Chi a review of, no surprise here, 5 out of 5. I've given very few films a 5 out of 5 rating, and I'm very surprised that I ended up giving it to Shang-Chi. But the more I think about it, and watch it yourself, tell me if I'm wrong, by all means, feel free. Movies like this, like Pig, like 1917, I think those are the only 3 films that are given a perfect 5 out of 5 for so far. They're so well done that they just work as what they are. They work perfectly. It's fine. I can't think of any major changes or alterations I would have made. Maybe sure take a scene out here or there, I guess, but no, it works really well for me. I don't like Disney. I'm gonna say it now. Maybe if they offered me some money, we can work something out, But Disney and big corporations like that make me very nervous for these properties and the stories and the creative artistic aspect of it all. But I'll give it to them. They're smart about how they make their money. They know they need to provide funding and give artists the resources, financially and creatively and otherwise, to make the content that audiences not only are going to go watch and purchase, but are also going to like and enjoy and spread the word. And you can keep pumping out shit that some people will buy, but it's better if you pump out good stuff that people will talk about for years to come. It appears that's what they've been doing with Star Wars, and in this case with the MCU. Props to them for at least knowing who to hire, who to give money to, and who to outsource to for the proper channels to get these things made. So credit where credit's due. If we get more films like Shang-Chi, I'm here for it, and I'm excited for it. This makes me, not to mention, the things they're introducing in the Marvel films, which keep going and all that. You thought Endgame was as crazy as it got. We've all seen the new Spider-Man trailer. Like, since the multiverse has been introduced in Loki, and the idea of the Timekeepers, and now the Immortals are coming out too, like, they are scaling up to have some serious shit go down in the MCU. But I digress. Like I said, Shang-Chi, 5 out of 5, would recommend. Go see it in theaters. It definitely deserves a viewing in theaters. It was a great movie for theaters. If you're stuck inside, then sure, stream it. I don't know if I would still encourage paying Disney an extra 30 schmackos to watch it, to watch on Disney Plus. I think a film like this deserves to be seen in theaters, but you know, it's up to you. I say it's worth it. I loved it. It's, in my mind, pretty much a perfect film. I couldn't think of any flaws immediately, so that's all there is to it. Thank you, guys and gals, so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of whatever I review. But in the meantime, feel free to comment below, tell me how I was wrong, let me know of any films you want me to review in the future. I'll try to, but no promises, busy schedule, and stay tuned for the next movie review that I do. And goodbye, travelers.